Hey everybody, welcome back to the Legion Vodcast. We're here again with Kelwin. We're kind of doing a little mini series on audio stuff. So last time you got to know Kelwin a little bit. Hashtag Wild Audio Rocks. So today, this episode, we're going to talk about a little bit more technical, how to do audio, gain structure, how you EQ, pitfalls people fall into, all of those things, how you signal flow management. I truly want to know how you even wrap your head around managing 56 inputs.
Or more, dude.
Yeah.
Like, oftentimes it's more.
So like grouping, DCAs, like what do you, like if you're doing, I guess to dive right in, I want to talk about gain structure, but before we do that, how do you do, again, I don't do music. I barely do audio. Mm-hmm. So like, how do you group a band? Like, how do you break it out? Or if you're doing multiple bands, like, tell me, please.
Definitely. I use groups and VCAs to the fullest on whatever surface I'm on console wise, Yamaha, Allen Heath, all this. I use them all the same. And my flow is usually creating groups similar to I would in a studio environment. So, for example, drums, how people always like to talk about how they mix drums, and that's kind of like people's, I don't know, it's a subject. It's a subject engineers love to talk about. That. I do this to a drum. I use
compression on the snare.
Yeah, that's dude, not gonna lie, that's a big one. People like gloat about it. Like, I use a 2-to-1. It's about a 10 millisecond attack. Yeah, totally, dude. But so all the instruments I mix typically on a band, I use groups. And for example, drums, I do a bus that's called skins, a group, and that's all the toms, the kick, and the snare. And then I do another group that's called skins crush, which is the toms, the snare, and all the shells of the drum kit basically go in there, and they get compressed with what's called an optical compressor.
This is so far over
dude. It's gonna get
right.
In the weeds.
All right, yeah, no, let's do it.
And then I have another group that's all the shiny stuff, the cymbals, anything else that's shiny, the hi-hat, on the kit, and all those go into another group that's called all drums, and that's where I do final touch-ups on drums and shape the sound from all these subgroups, essentially going into the main drum group. And that helps me kind of just keep everything in control. And it's kind of hard not to me to talk about this in like a high level type. Like, I'm trying to keep it very like.
No, I mean, however you talk about it. So so your skins and your skins crushed, those are basically, it's getting different sounds from the same drums.
It's the same drum, yeah, different sounds. So one is it's pretty clean. There's like minimal EQing, really hard. Probably 9 times out of 10, there's no compression on the skins group or on the skins bus. It's just the shells on their own. The parallel, the skins crushed, is a really just like demolished with a compressor parallel group, and I just sneak that in underneath my already existing drum sound, and it just really pushes the drums forward in the mix, but still keeping it within its place from the all drums group. I use a lot of compression in my mix, and it's not to say it's compressed in like an MP3 sounding way. It's compressed to what I think, to my ears, is tasteful and keeps everything dynamic, but still keeps it within the pocket.
What's that mean?
So it still allows the drummer to, when he starts to get really really aggressive, or the song calls for an aggressive drum part, the aggressive drum part still comes through, because I'm getting a lot of attack from the parallel group. I'm getting a lot of him digging into the drums, because I'm getting input louder. It's going to these groups and being compressed at different levels. It almost sounds like the drummer is taming himself naturally versus a whole compressor just whacking the drummer down. Because there's so many steps in the compression, and none of it, besides the subtlety for sure. I like to use a lot of compressors in my mixes because I feel like it helps everything sound naturally dynamic, meaning like the band, as they go up and down in volume, it just tames them a little bit. It never really just squashes them. It never keeps them in brick walls them into a place. It always just kind of like
keeps them together as a
keeps
group.
them together, keeps everything really gelled.
Another
thing I like to do that's really like key to the way I mix the bands that I mix, I like to send all the musical instruments or elements in general, tracks, horns, percussion, drums, guitar, every single musical thing that's an instrument goes to one group after all of the parallels and all this stuff. And in that group, I like to insert a dynamic EQ or a dynamic compressor most of the time. And you can do what's called a key input, meaning the compressor is listening not for what it's attached to, but for something else. So whenever this other source is being heard by the compressor, it'll compress a certain frequency range relative to the input of that one source. That one source being my vocal. So whenever the vocal comes in, a little tiny scoop in the intelligibility range kicks in and scoops down on the band so that the vocal sits like right in a little pocket with the band.
That's wild. This is, to me, is like, I am such a technical person, and like I can do audio in like a like you plug this in here, it goes there, the sound comes out there, and like technically I know how to do it. But like what you're talking about, like it's the art form of making a band sound better than they could, right? Like if they played with no like amplification of any kind, like that's like a natural, like this is like using the technology to make them sound better, and it's like the art form of that. And like I truly, it's wild to me.
Yeah, reflecting on everything I just said and your response right now, it makes me really think about like how you mentioned that you learn more when you're teaching because you're saying the things you do out loud. That's me right now. Saying all this out loud really makes me think that like maybe I should slow down and process a little bit slower before actually just going out and doing these things.
But I mean it works, right? Like
I like the way it sounds most of the time.
You get hired to do it, right? And people are happy. Just a tangent again a little bit, like a couple times we did stuff that I knew you were excellent. And one was we did a small intimate Luke Combs concert and using we did, yeah. And
I remember.
You were using my Yamaha console and my QSE KLAs, which are, not a music, I would say not really a music
not desired, but
not desired, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it was for 100 people, so
sure.
Like it was fine for that. But like I remember Luke Combs front of house console or front of house engineer comes in, and you're like, hey, like this is how I set it up. This is, I shaded these boxes a little bit, and does stuff. And then he was literally just like, yep, no, that makes sense. Yep, I would do that too. Yep, no, this is great. This is perfect. Thanks. Literally, the client was so stressed about that moment. And same, the head of audio for that company came in, and they were like, this guy's he is real on this stuff. And both of them were just like, no, this is perfect. Yeah. And I was just like, fucking Kelwin, man.
I remember that. I like, ran into them since then too.
Yeah. Oh, the Luke Combs?
The Luke Combs team, like on a festival, yeah. And
that's
I was
awesome.
like, yo, what's up, guys?
And they were like, who are you?
No, they remembered.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
They remembered the event. They remember everything.
I mean, I guess that's fair. They remember that.
It's cool.
I feel like they go so many places.
It's weird how you would, like, even like for me, people, when I remember like certain stagehands from certain venues, or they go around and work at other venues, and if I remember them, they're also taken off by that. They're like, you remember? And I was like, yeah, dude, of course. Yeah. You were cool. I remember you.
Totally. All right. I want to get into gain structure.
Oh, yeah.
So we just did a show at the Moscone in San Francisco, and we use, on all of our lav mics, we use the DPA 4080s, which are like little tiny boom mics.
And they're great.
And but the audio engineer was using them, and they sounded like shit. And like we were sending to a Zoom, and I was on the Zoom call wearing AirPods, and it was just like live AF. And I was like, bro, you gotta drop your gain. And he was just like, no way. And I was just like, you gotta drop your gain. Like, let's bring the gain down by like 10. And he brought it down by 10. And I was just like, bring it down by another 10. Like, just push your faders more. Like,
where was it at? Do you remember?
What do you mean?
Like, where was his gain at for you to say, come down 10 and then 10 again?
I don't know where it was at, but it was high.
Dude was tweaking at like 40.
And then we brought it down again, and like, I think he didn't realize the amount that those mics can do with less gain, and so like maybe he was used to
high gain stuff,
or like Shure's standard, like their MX 185s or whatever, which are fine, but they're just not as sensitive, so you got to push a little more. So, but like that, and then like he was kind of like, holy shit, like that solved it, and I still have enough volume for the room and everything.
Yeah, dude, they take really well to EQing, and like if your gain structure is correct, they do really. It's a really good mic, really, really good lav mic.
But yeah, it's a great. I mean, it's a freaking $900 lav mic. So it better be
true.
good.
It's true.
But yeah, I mean, I love DPA. They're amazing. But just like gain structure in general, like again, there's not a right way or a wrong way.
Correct.
Right? There are just ways.
There are ways.
So like, talk me through how you like to do gain structure, and also what am I even saying? What is gain structure? What does that mean? Like, so let's go dumb it down.
Gain
again,
structure,
I don't know. I'm just
on a base level.
I just hear these words and I pretend I know what they mean.
Voltage going through the XLR to the microphone.
Say that again.
Gain structure in general on a elementary level is just voltage going through the XLR, hitting the microphone's voice coil and exciting it. So how sensitive, how much
He
gain,
blows my mind.
how much gain you're adding, you're making this voice coil more sensitive.
Okay.
The less gain you're adding, you're making it less sensitive.
Never thought about like the actual
so
electricity.
Like as you're potting it up, as they say, turning it up in gain, the farther you get away, it's not that it can pick you up farther, it's that it's picking you up here, and then it's increasing in sensitivity because of the gain and picking up things around you. So because it's picking up out here now, of course you're going to be louder, but so are the elements around you. So you have to find that balance of visually with my hands. You can kind of see gain being this and its pattern. So a microphone has a polarity pattern too,
right? Cardioid,
supercardioid, omni, all these things. So it picks up in that pattern respective to gain, and it's no one way to say gain at 20 is always a good gain for speech. It depends on so many variables, the preamp, the microphone, like where you're outputting to, whether it's a speaker system that for whatever reason is set to mic level and you're sending a line level signal to it, like it depends on a lot of things. But that's gain on an elementary level. My method, and this is when I get a little old school, and I just keep it old school in this sense, and it's worked out for me so far, and I'm probably gonna keep doing it. The method behind the madness is unity is where you will have the best resolution of that channel on the console, whatever console you have. So as you go up and down from unity, you'll have the best resolution of the input, meaning as you get louder or as you get lower, if you are getting a healthy input at unity, you're going to be getting the most out of the microphone possible before feedback. That's the way I got taught. That's the way I came up.
So you build your gain structure around being able to get your fader to unity?
Yeah, fader to unity. My input fader to unity. I don't worry about the output yet. The output is almost like halfway my least concern. I'm concerned about what I'm outputting to, whether I'm about to turn my mains fader to negative 20 and it's about to be screaming loud, then there's another issue to chase down.
Right.
But for the most part, I worry about mains last, and as long as that input is healthy and the way I want it to sound, meaning that if I'm at unity and it doesn't sound like I'm picking up birds a mile away, then it's pretty healthy. And if I'm at unity and it sounds like I can pick up the microphone from, relatively normal variables in positioning, then it's also healthy.
And that's what you mean by like resolution.
Yeah.
Like the best quality sound that's, loud enough and clear enough and not, distorting or anything like that.
At unity. And from there, I go to sending it to the places it needs to be sent to. And if I am barely sending it and it's, again, screaming loud, or if I'm sending a lot of it and it's very quiet, I know that there's another issue somewhere else because I know my gain structure is good.
On your input.
On my input.
So you kind of are, as a audio engineer, you're kind of breaking up your, say, I made this good. I know this is good, and now I can move to my next piece. And if there are issues, I know that if I'm going to be troubleshooting, it's not that because that's good. So it's like it kind of reduces your.
It's kind of like signal flow and troubleshooting signal flow.
Right.
For example, the source you're outputting from is actually outputting.
Right.
Then you can track it down the line.
Yeah.
Similar mindset in that regard.
So do you start like, is it, bring everything like, ULXDs. We use a lot of ULXDs. They have on the back, they have a line and a mic switch. Like, do you start everything at low gain and then work your way up, or does that matter?
So this is, again, where I become old school dude again. I like microphones to be at mic level.
Microphones at mic level.
Because they're a microphone. And if they were going to be using an instrument through it, for example, an acoustic guitar through a wireless pack, I will put that thing at line level because it's an instrument.
Ah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Smart.
Because
it makes sense.
Right? You come across this a lot in the corporate world where people have that thing at line level. They have like freaking +6 on the belt pack, +6 on the thing, and like 10 dB of gain on the console, and their faders are barely up. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's good. Sure. You are getting your gain structure from 3 different places rather than the one place. And my preference that it, again, works for me. Everybody has different flows because I've definitely seen people who have this thing screaming loud on the input coming from the receiver. Like that receiver's like +15 or something crazy. And their fader for the PA is really low, like -30. And it sounds really good. It sounds clear. It's not feeding back. I'm like,
right.
It sounds like how I would.
There's not a right and a wrong. There's just different ways. Like
there's different ways.
Yeah. So
and different perspectives and different ways to get to the same place. So for me, that's my method. Input first. Input and source.
So you said something that I want to like dive into a little bit, and you said like you're getting your gain from 3 different places. So are you trying to get your gain like from the console?
Me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I like to get my
gain
basically from one place.
So you're not like you're at Unity. You're at Unity on the receiver. You're at Unity on the transmitter, and mic level unit, and then from there, you can raise it up in the console. And if there's some weird thing, I guess you could do those other things if you need to.
Yeah.
But again, that kind of gives you, in my mind, that like gives you the most flexibility. Whereas, because if you cranked up on the belt pack, then like how are you gonna fix that?
Yeah, how are you gonna fix the person who comes out and is like way louder than the last?
Right. So that makes sense to me. So yeah, it's do it on the thing that you're in front of and you have control of.
And I say that, and then some people would immediately think, well, you just turned down the fader. And it's like, I don't want to be chasing faders on my show, you know?
And if that works for you, that's fine. Again, there's not a right and a wrong way necessarily. I think there's a better and a worse.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
And but also like if it's something you do and it works, like fucking you do you.
Yeah, for sure. And also like I guess that depends too on the certain microphone, because I've definitely have gone the full line of Shure lavs, and I've also done the DPA lav and all this. And that method that I have does vary a little bit.
Sure.
Depending. I might actually reach for the receiver to give me a little bit of a hotter signal if the microphone is lower sensitivity.
Yeah.
DPA being one of them, where I have been in positions where, for example, we're setting up a powered PA system that for whatever reason was in-house, and it seems like it's receiving mic level, meaning that I barely turned up my fader, and that thing's just like ridiculously loud. At that point, I'm immediately just like, yo, turn that thing down from the source. Like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
You know? So,
yeah.
Also, it depends on input-wise. Like, if really increasing gain from just one place isn't working out for me, and I can't utilize my de-esser, my compressor, my anything, because the input volume is so low.
Yeah.
And me just...
I run into that issue. But again, I'm not an audio engineer.
At that point, I will increase it at the receiver. Yeah, but I will do that at soundcheck or whenever I have time.
You mean my compressor being at -45 is
not very... it's not a great utilization of the compressor for sure.
Yeah. Definitely done that.
But again, back to like the term resolution. That was always something that I heard coming up. It's like you're not even getting very good resolution on that input channel at that point
Right.
for you to utilize the tools that are in front of you.
Yeah. So
You're
again,
just-
having good resolution at Unity gives you a lot more room to play,
Yeah.
a lot more flexibility in what you're doing,
Yeah.
which makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, well, I could talk to Kelwin all day. I feel like we just scratched the surface on this. I could do 100 episodes with you talking about this.
Dude, go deep.
So I think I'm going to stop there. Gain structure. And yeah, we could keep going. Anyways, Kelwin Hernandez, Wild Audio, the fucking man. Love this guy.